Close your eyes and you can almost smell it again. The hiss of onions in a heavy pan, the warm fug of a kitchen on a Tuesday night, the sound of your mum calling everyone to the table while the news played quietly in the background. The 1970s gave us brown wallpaper, 3-channel telly, and dinners that look ridiculous in photographs now, but tasted like home. We are counting down 20 weird British dinners from that vanished decade that were secretly, defiantly, properly delicious. From tinned salmon shaped like a fish to chicken that exploded with garlic butter, from packet curries gone in 5 minutes to gammon crowned with a glistening pineapple ring, every dish on this list carries the warmth of a kitchen that no longer exists. Which secretly delicious 1970s dinner tops our list? Let's begin with number 20. Number 20. The cheese and pineapple hedgehog was the party piece that doubled as a tea-time savoury, bristling at the centre of every suburban dining table from Surrey to Stirling. Hosts pushed cubes of mild cheddar and chunks of tinned Del Monte pineapple onto cocktail sticks, then stabbed each one into a foil-wrapped grapefruit until the whole thing prickled like a porcupine. By 1972, tinned pineapple was selling in the millions of tins each year across Britain, and the hedgehog had become the unofficial emblem of the dinner party. Children stole the sticks faster than mothers could load them, and grown-ups picked at it while sipping Babysham or Blue Nun. The combination sounded baffling. Sweet, juicy fruit pressed against a dense block of cheese, yet the acid cut through the dairy fat in a way that made each bite oddly refreshing. Diaries from the era recall the hedgehog wheeled out for every gathering, every christening, every Boxing Day buffet. Younger generations sneer at the idea now, but those who lived through it remember the salty sweet hit and the way the pineapple softened in the mouth alongside crumbling cheese. It looked daft. It tasted brilliant. Number 19. Deviled eggs were the elegant little weapon every hostess in the 1970s kept in her arsenal, served on glass platters with paper doilies and a brave dusting of paprika. Housewives boiled a dozen eggs on a Saturday morning, halved them lengthways with a sharp knife, and scooped the yolks into a bowl to be mashed with Heinz salad cream, English mustard, and a shake of cayenne. The mixture was then piped back into the white halves with a star nozzle, each one finished with a sliver of stuffed olive or a curl of anchovy. A dozen eggs cost around 25 pence in 1974, making deviled eggs the cheapest way to feel sophisticated in a 3-bedroom semi. The sharpness of the mustard cut through the rich yolk, while the salad cream added that distinctly British tang no continental recipe could replicate. Children loved them precisely because they looked like something a grown-up should not share. Today they survive only in cookbooks bound in orange leatherette, but anyone who tasted a properly piped deviled egg knows the secret. They were never weird. They were just confident. Number 18. Salmon mousse molded into the shape of a fish, complete with a sliced olive for an eye, was the showstopper of the 70s dinner party. The cook started with a tin of pink John West salmon, drained and flaked, then folded into a mixture of cream cheese, lemon juice, gelatine, and a splash of dry sherry. The whole thing was poured into an aluminium fish-shaped mold, bought from Woolworths for around 75 pence, set overnight in the fridge, then turned out onto a bed of crisp iceberg lettuce in front of impressed guests. By 1976, tinned salmon was a fixture in nearly every British pantry, and the mousse appeared at buffets from the Cotswolds to the Cairngorms. The texture was silky, the flavour clean and lemony, and the sherry gave it a grown-up edge that lifted it well above its humble tinned origins. Children dipped tuck crackers into it. Adults spread it on triangles of brown bread. The fish-shaped mold has long since vanished from kitchen cupboards, but the mousse itself was genuinely fine cooking, dressed up in fancy dress. Number 17. Spam fritters reigned supreme in the British chippy. And the school dinner queue throughout the 1970s, sliced thick and battered like fish before being dropped into bubbling beef dripping. A tin of Spam cost around 18 pence in 1973, and a single tin could be sliced into 8 or 9 pink discs, each one dunked in a simple flour and water batter before frying until the outside turned golden and crisp. Served with chips, mushy peas, and a generous shake of malt vinegar, Spam fritters were a Friday night ritual in homes where fresh fish was a treat too far. The Spam itself transformed in the fryer, the edges crisping into something almost like bacon, while the inside stayed soft and salty. Oral histories from the Midlands recall the smell of fritter night drifting down terrace streets, the queue at the local chippy stretching out the door, and the satisfaction of biting through crunchy batter into hot, savoury meat. Modern cooks dismiss it as the nadir of British cuisine. Anyone who actually ate one in 1975 remembers it differently. It was genuinely, ridiculously good. Number 16. Vesta beef curry came in a cardboard box the size of a paperback novel and somehow promised the entire mystery of the East for around 35 pence. The packet contained dehydrated rice, a foil sachet of brown powder, and dried lumps of beef that looked like gravel, all to be reconstituted with boiling water and a knob of margarine. By 1974, Vesta was selling over 40 million packets a year across Britain, with the beef curry and chow mein varieties leading the charge into homes that had never seen a fresh chili. The result, after 15 minutes of stirring, was a thick brown sauce studded with sultanas, served over yellow rice and topped with a handful of crispy noodles from a second tiny sachet. It tasted nothing like an actual curry. It tasted of something else entirely, a particular blend of sweet, salty, vaguely spiced comfort that nothing has replicated since. Sales eventually collapsed when proper Indian restaurants reached the suburbs, but ask anyone who grew up eating Vesta in the 70s and they will tell you quietly that they still miss it. It was secretly wonderful. Number 15. Boil-in-the-bag cod in parsley sauce was the modern miracle of the 1970s freezer cabinet, a small plastic pouch of white fish suspended in a creamy green sauce that needed nothing more than a saucepan of simmering water. Birdseye launched the format in the late 1960s, and by 1975, it had become the weeknight savior of working mothers across Britain, selling tens of millions of bags a year. A 2-pack cost around 22 pence, and supper appeared on the table in 15 minutes with no washing up beyond a fork. The cod itself stayed flaky and tender inside the bag, while the parsley sauce, rich with milk solids and a faint hint of lemon, clung to every flake without ever curdling. Served over a mound of buttered smash instant potato with a side of garden peas, it looked like proper home cooking, even when the cook had spent 90 seconds preparing it. Food writers now mock the bag, but the technique was genuinely clever, and the flavor was a long way from disappointing. It was effortless dinner that tasted like effort. Number 14. Findus crispy pancakes were the strangest object in the freezer of the 1970s. Golden orange pillows of breadcrumbed pastry that bore no resemblance to any pancake known to civilization. Inside each one waited a molten filling of minced beef and onion, or chicken and mushroom, or the divisive cheese and ham, all pressed inside a crimped semicircle and frozen solid. Launched in 1971, they retailed at around 25 pence for a box of 4, and by mid-decade, they had become a fixture in school holidays, when older siblings could grill them without supervision. The trick was patience. Bite too soon, and the filling burned the roof of your mouth like napalm. Wait too long, and the crispy shell turned chewy. Get it right, and you had a small parcel of savory heaven, the crunch giving way to a salty, slightly creamy interior that tasted nothing like home cooking and absolutely everything like a treat. They survived into the 21st century in slightly diminished form, but the original recipe, denser and richer, was a small masterpiece of industrial food design. Number 13. Gammon steak with a glistening pineapple ring and a maraschino cherry stuck in the middle was the pub lunch and dinner party staple that defined the entire decade. Butchers sold gammon steaks for around 80 pence a pound in 1973, and the standard preparation involved frying the salty, cured pork in a knob of butter, then crowning it with a ring of tinned pineapple still warm from its own syrup. The cherry was non-negotiable. Served with chips and a small dish of canned garden peas, this was the meal that filled every Burnie Inn from Birmingham to Bournemouth. The combination sounded preposterous and looked even worse, the bright yellow ring sitting on a slab of pink meat like a culinary traffic light. But the chemistry was undeniable. The pineapple's ad sliced through the gammon's intense salt, the syrup caramelized in the pan, and the whole thing tasted balanced and oddly elegant. Modern restaurants serve pork with applesauce or fig compote. The 70s got there first with a tin of Del Monte and a butcher's slab. It worked beautifully. Number 12. Liver and bacon with onion gravy was the midweek supper that filled millions of British plates with cheap, dense, iron-rich comfort throughout the 1970s. Lamb's liver cost around 18 pence a pound, and a packet of streaky bacon added another 30 pence, making the entire meal one of the most economical dinners in the country. The technique demanded confidence. Slices of liver had to be dredged in seasoned flour, then fried fast in the bacon fat, no more than 90 seconds aside, or the meat would tighten into shoe leather. The onions caramelized slowly in another pan, browned to a sticky tangle before being deglazed with stock and a splash of Worcestershire sauce. Served over a heap of creamed potatoes with the bacon crumbled on top, it was a dinner that asked very little and delivered an enormous amount. The metallic richness of the liver, properly cooked, melted on the tongue like nothing else in the British repertoire. Children either loved it or loathed it with no middle ground. The grown-ups who grew up eating it still order it whenever they spot it on a gastropub menu. Number 11. Faggots in rich onion gravy were the Black Country's secret weapon throughout the 1970s, a dish that turned the offcuts no one else wanted into something almost luxurious. Butchers across Birmingham and Wolverhampton mixed pig's liver, heart and belly with onion, breadcrumbs and sage, rolled the mixture into baseball-sized balls, and wrapped each one in caul fat before baking them in deep trays of dark, sticky gravy. Brains faggots in tins arrived in 1974 and could be bought for around 22 pence for a 4-pack, while the fresh versions from a proper Midlands butcher cost a little more but tasted like another dish entirely. Served with mushy peas, mashed potato, and a ladle of the gravy, poured over everything. Faggots were the supper that warmed factory workers and stretched a Friday wage packet across an entire weekend. The flavor was deep, herbal, slightly sweet from the onion, with the awful richness held in check by the breadcrumbs. They sound horrifying in the modern age. They tasted like proper, confident cooking. Number 10. Welsh rarebit elevated cheese on toast into something approaching alchemy, and the 1970s saw it served as a proper supper dish in homes from Cardiff to Carlisle. The basic version started with a thick slice of bread, but the rarebit itself was a roux of butter and flour cooked into a paste, loosened with a generous splash of Bass or Worthington bitter, then enriched with a heap of grated mature cheddar, a teaspoon of English mustard, and a dash of Worcestershire sauce. The mixture was spread thick on toasted bread and slid under the grill until it bubbled and blistered into a golden, savory blanket. By 1975, the dish appeared in nearly every British cookery book aimed at the new generation of working couples, since it cost around 15 pence per serving and required no real meat. The flavor was extraordinary, sharp from the mustard, malty from the beer, with the cheese stretched and intensified by the roux. Served with a sliced tomato or a pickled walnut, it was a proper hot supper. Welsh rarebit was never weird. It was clever cooking dressed in modest clothes. Number 9. Macaroni cheese in the 1970s was a dish of confidence and crisp golden crust, baked in a brown earthenware dish until the surface bubbled and the breadcrumb topping turned the color of toffee. The base was a proper bechamel, made by melting 2 ounces of butter into 2 ounces of plain flour, then whisking in a pint of milk until thick and smooth. A generous fistful of grated cheddar went in, along with a teaspoon of English mustard powder, and the boiled macaroni was folded through before the whole thing was tipped into a dish, sprinkled with more cheese and a layer of crushed cornflakes or breadcrumbs, and baked until it puffed and crackled. A meal for 4 cost less than 40 pence in 1976. The sauce was silky, the cheese stretched in slow strands when the spoon broke through, and the topping shattered like ice on a puddle. Kids ate it without complaint. Today's boxed versions are a pale shadow. The proper baked 70s macaroni cheese was rich, sharp, and quietly magnificent. Number 8. Coronation chicken was the most peculiar national dish ever invented, served at countless dinner parties in the 1970s as the height of cosmopolitan sophistication. The original recipe, created for Queen Elizabeth's coronation in 1953, took off properly in the 1970s when garden parties and buffet lunches became fashionable. Cold poached chicken was tossed in a sauce of Hellmann's mayonnaise, with a teaspoon of mild curry powder, a spoonful of apricot jam, a splash of red wine, and a handful of sultanas. It was then served on a bed of lettuce with cold rice salad and almonds scattered over the top. It cost around 60 pence per serving in 1974, and it appeared at every tennis club fundraiser and church fete in the home counties. The flavor was bizarre on paper. Sweet, fruity, mildly spiced, creamy, it somehow came together into a single unified taste that nothing else has ever quite matched. Modern attempts strip out the jam or pile on chili to make it relevant. They miss the point entirely. Coronation chicken was a slightly mad British experiment in flavor, and it was completely, surprisingly delicious. Number 7, Steak Diane, was the tableside spectacle that turned every 1970s steakhouse into a small piece of theater. The waiter wheeled out a gleaming trolley, fired up a single gas burner, and cooked the dish in front of the table with the flourish of a stage magician. A thin steak was seared in butter, then a sauce was built around it from finely chopped shallots, Dijon mustard, double cream, a glug of brandy that was ignited with a dramatic whoosh, and a final shake of Worcestershire sauce. The flames leapt waist high, the diners gasped, and within 4 minutes a plate of glossy, peppery, creamy steak arrived in front of the host. A steak Diane at a Burney Inn or a Beefeater cost around £2.50 in 1976, and it was the dish you ordered when you really wanted to impress. The flavor was extraordinary, the cream and brandy reducing into a sauce so rich it coated the back of a spoon. The technique now looks dated and ever so slightly theatrical, but the dish itself was, and remains, properly delicious cooking. Number 6, prawn cocktail in its little glass dish was the starter that defined the entire decade, a small monument to suburban ambition served before every roast and every dinner party from 1970 to 1979. The construction was strict. Shredded iceberg lettuce went in the bottom of the glass, a handful of small frozen prawns, thawed and drained, sat on top, and the whole thing was crowned with a generous dollop of Marie Rose sauce. The sauce was essentially Heinz salad cream mixed with tomato ketchup, a squeeze of lemon, and a few drops of brandy if the host was feeling adventurous. A paprika dusting and a single lemon wedge completed the picture. A bag of frozen prawns cost around 45 pence in 1975, enough for 4 cocktails, and every house seemed to own a set of small glass coupes, especially for the job. The flavor was tangy, slightly sweet, and somehow more than the sum of its parts. Critics have spent decades mocking it. Anyone who actually ate one in a freezing dining room before a Sunday roast knows the truth. It was genuinely delicious. Number 5. Beef stroganoff arrived in British kitchens via paperback cookbooks and ITV cookery shows, becoming the dinner party choice of every aspirational hostess by the middle of the 1970s. Strips of fillet or rump steak were flashed in butter with finely sliced onion and a heap of button mushrooms, then doused in a generous splash of brandy that was set alight before the pan was finished with soured cream, a teaspoon of paprika, and a squeeze of lemon. The whole thing took less than 15 minutes, but cost around £1 and 20 pence per serving in 1976, which made it firmly a treat. Served over a bed of long grain rice or buttered tagliatelle with a sprinkle of chopped parsley for show, beef stroganoff arrived at the table looking and tasting like the kind of food you might be served on a Trans-Europe Express. The combination of brandy, soured cream, and paprika was unfamiliar to most British palates, but it landed quickly and stayed. The flavor was rich, slightly tangy, with the mushrooms soaking up everything. It was genuinely impressive cooking, pretending to be effortless. Number 4. Toad in the hole in the 1970s reached a kind of golden age, served in homes across the country as the Tuesday night answer to the question of how to feed a family on less than £1. Half a pound of pork sausages cost around 30 pence, and the batter required nothing more than flour, eggs, milk, and a pinch of salt, whisked into a smooth, pale liquid. The sausages were browned in a hot tin in 2 tablespoons of beef dripping. Then the batter was poured around them, and the whole thing slid into a very hot oven, where it puffed up around the sausages like a golden duvet. Served with onion gravy made from the meat juices and a tin of garden peas, toad in the hole was the supper that filled the table on a budget. The batter at the edges turned crisp and almost biscuit-like, while the center stayed soft and eggy. Children fought over the corner pieces. The dish has lingered in British kitchens, but the 1970s version, cooked properly in dripping, was genuinely superb. Number 3. Chicken Kiev was the most exotic supermarket discovery of the 1970s, arriving in Marks & Spencer's chill cabinets in 1979 and immediately rewriting the rules of weeknight cooking. The dish itself, a Russian-French invention by way of post-war Paris, consisted of a chicken breast wrapped tightly around a frozen pillar of garlic and parsley butter, then coated in breadcrumbs and chilled. Cooked from frozen in a hot oven for around 35 minutes, the Kiev arrived at the table looking neat and slightly mysterious until the fork pierced the crust and a jet of green-flecked garlic butter erupted across the plate. A 2-pack cost around 95 pence in 1979, which was a small fortune for a ready meal, but the effect was unforgettable. The garlic, almost unknown in mainstream British cooking before this point, hit the room like a small explosion. Children either recoiled in horror or became immediate converts. Chicken Kiev single-handedly introduced the British palate to proper garlic butter, and the dish itself, properly cooked, was a glorious mess of crisp, soft, and oozing. Number 2. Lancashire hot pot in the 1970s clung on as the great northern Sunday dinner, even as supermarket convenience tried to push it aside. Housewives layered chunks of stewing lamb or mutton with sliced onion and seasoning in a deep brown earthenware pot, poured over stock made from a Knorr cube and a splash of Worcestershire sauce, then covered the entire thing with overlapping discs of thinly sliced potato. The pot was sealed and placed in a low oven for 3 hours. by which time the meat had collapsed into the gravy and the potato lid had crisped to a deep golden brown. A pound of stewing lamb cost around 60 pence in 1973, and the dish fed 6 people with a hunk of bread on the side. The smell drifted through entire terraces. Children sat on cold lino floors watching the clock. When the lid came off, the top layer of potato shattered like ice, while the meat beneath fell apart at the touch of a spoon. Lancashire hot pot in its proper 1970s form was the taste of patient cooking. It was secretly extraordinary. And finally, in first place, beef Wellington crowned the 1970s dinner party as the absolute peak of British culinary ambition. A dish so elaborate that pulling it off correctly became a kind of suburban rite of passage. A whole fillet of beef, costing around £3 in 1975 and representing nearly a week's grocery budget, was seared hard in butter, brushed with English mustard, smothered in a thick paste of finely chopped mushrooms and shallots cooked down with brandy until almost dry, then wrapped in a layer of Parma ham or pancakes, and finally encased in a sheet of puff pastry rolled paper thin. The whole parcel was glazed with beaten egg, scored decoratively with the back of a knife, and slid into a screaming hot oven for exactly 25 minutes. Hostesses across Britain spent the cooking time pacing the kitchen and chain-smoking. When the Wellington emerged, the pastry was burnished mahogany, and the slice revealed a perfect ring of pink beef inside a layer of dark mushroom, all wrapped in crisp golden pastry. The flavor was magnificent, deep, rich, savory, with the butter from the pastry mingling with the rare beef juices. Diaries from the era record the silence that fell when the first slice was carved. It looked impossible. It tasted like a triumph. Across all 20 entries, from the bristling cheese and pineapple hedgehog that opened our list to the magnificent beef Wellington at the very top, these forgotten dinners tell a story of a decade when British cooking finally let its hair down. Some dishes look bizarre to modern eyes: fish-shaped mousses, fritters made from tinned meat, curries from a packet. But every one of them carried real flavor, real craft, and real ambition. The 1970s get mocked for their food, but anyone who actually ate at a British dinner table in that decade remembers something different. They remember the smell of frying onions, the hiss of a flambe, the satisfying crunch of bread-crumbed pastry. These were dinners cooked with confidence, served with pride, and quietly, secretly, properly delicious. The decade had taste. We just forgot.